Welcome everyone to Maximize Revenue with Dynamic Allocation. Excited to have everyone here today.
Welcome. Thanks for making time, everyone. We'll definitely try and ensure that you get the most out of these 30 minutes. And not only that, get the highest revenue possible using DFP.
Awesome. And I'm Laura Murfeld. I've been with Google just under 2 years. And before that was doing IT consulting, and also have some experience from the buy side working in AdWords. So hopefully that helps, give me a little more perspective here, high level. And then got my colleague Vishal.
Hey everyone, my name is Vishal Bhatia, and I'm a strategic partner manager here at Google. Worked in Google, both in the publishing as well as the buy side for almost 5 years now. So I'm really excited to have you guys have this opportunity to present to all of you. I think we have around 50 small and medium business partners joining us today. So welcome, and let's get started.
Awesome.
All right. So quickly, so the agenda item for today is we'll cover the following topics. What is dynamic allocation in the first place? How does it work? What are the key benefits? How do you enable dynamic allocation? So we want this to be like a hands-on session where you can actually go into your accounts. We'll walk you through the steps that you need to take in order to ensure that you're getting the most out of DFP. And then we'll jump on to reporting. That is an area which some of you have expressed a lot of interest in, that what are some of the reports that we need to look at. And then we can take some live questions as well.
Yep.
Right.
All right. So what is dynamic allocation? So at the end of the day, the goal is to get as much money possible from every impression, right? So just maximize your revenue, get as much money as possible. So dynamic allocation is one of the key benefits of DFP. And it allows you to have Google compete with networks in real time to really maximize your revenue and take advantage of those efficiencies and just make more money, and also monetize impressions that otherwise would go unfilled. So dynamic allocation is just helping you compete in real time, maximize RPMs, maximize revenue from both Google and your other networks.
Great. So let's try and understand this a little bit more in detail with an example. I hope everyone can see the screen, but towards your left, here's one of our publishers, Susan. She has AdSense hard-coded on her website. It seems like a horizontal unit, 728 by 90. And then another network, ad network, let's call it ad network A, also hard-coded on the website. Seems like AdSense is paying out $2.50 for the AdSense ad unit, and the ad network A is able to provide $2.10. So on the left side of the screen, all you see is hard-coded AdSense and network A. Now, what happens when Susan decides to actually enable AdSense for dynamic allocation and use only one code, just the DFP tag on their website, on her website? What benefit will that provide? So if you look at the right side of the screen now, the 728 by 90, which earlier would have gone directly to AdSense at $2.50. Now that instead of hard coding AdSense, Susan has put a DFP tag there. Both network A as well as AdSense are competing for the same slot, and $3.50 is what network A could provide, and so DFP will give that impression to network A to fill and not to AdSense. Similarly, for the vertical unit, which most probably is like a 160 by 600, where earlier it would have gone directly to network A because network A was hard-coded for that inventory. Now DFP is making AdSense also compete for that space. And for all you know, AdSense could have provided something higher, $3 RPM instead of $2.10. And so the DFP will give that impression to AdSense, and AdSense will be able to show an ad there for $3. So that way you can see how running AdSense within DFP and enabling AdSense for dynamic allocation is the best way to maximize yield.
Yeah, and one thing to add there is just every impression is worth a different amount, right? So, and every network is going to have different like inventory that can fill and serve that impression. So that's why you want it to compete in real time, because maybe there are cases where one of your networks has a lot more supply for certain users, right? And in that case, you want them to be able to serve. Or if AdSense can serve higher CPMs for a certain number of users, then you want AdSense to serve more. So instead of breaking them out, hard coding them separately, or putting them at network where you have fixed number of impressions, you want everything to be able to compete in real time, just because the value of every impression is vastly different.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really great example, and it kind of talks about some of these key benefits here. So the first is obviously revenue uplift. So hopefully as we saw in the previous example, there's inefficiencies that happen when you hard code networks, because the value of those impressions are always changing. So hopefully by enabling dynamic allocation, you would see a revenue uplift, because you're maximizing which networks are serving the impression when it can pay a higher price, right? Second benefit is real-time CPMs, right? So dynamic allocation allows bids from Google AdSense to compete in real time, right? So the RPM that it says that it can compete at, that's true. That's the true RPM that it's going to compete with your other networks, and it's going to change for every single impression, for every single visitor for your site. Third is fill rate. So obviously, Google AdWords, Google has one of the highest fill rates in the industry just because it has such a large pool of advertisers. So that also allows it to fill, like in backfill here, and earn money on impressions that otherwise would go unfilled. So maybe there's a high volume of medium or lower value impressions that other networks can't fill, or calls that for certain users, maybe 20 of users visiting your site, many pages of your site per day. In those cases, AdSense is a great network to be able to fill lots of those high volume repeated visitors. So AdSense can act as backfill there. And then also low maintenance. So because you don't have to update the rates for Google, and Google automatically is updating its rates in real time, you don't have to go in and tweak and calculate what you want Google to compete at. It just does that automatically. So that gives you more time to focus on your content. And then also, the maintenance piece is just really focusing on attributing the correct values for your other networks that you do want Google to compete at.
All right, so great. So now that we have learned all the benefits, let's actually go ahead and do it. There are two ways by which all of you can use dynamic allocation. One is called the AdSense, enabling it at an ad unit level. So, and that is what we are going to discuss in our presentation today. But there's another method as well, which is called the line item level backfill, where you actually go ahead and create an AdSense line item. It has its own advantages. Reporting can be slightly better if you create AdSense line items. Not every publisher is eligible for the second method, but those of you who would be interested, we'll definitely share this deck with all of you. And in the appendix, we can include details around how you can get set up if you wanted to go with the second method, that is the line item level backfill. But for now, I think let's look at how to enable DA at an ad unit level.
Yep. So the most common way to enable dynamic allocation is within the inventory tab. So hopefully some of you are already logged into your DFP accounts, but if you haven't done so already, go ahead and log in to DFP, and I'll walk you through the step-by-step on how to actually do this, how to find which ad units need dynamic allocation, how to enable dynamic allocation, and then after that, I'll hand it off to Vishal to kind of look through the reporting. So I'll just give you a minute here to make sure you're logged into DFP.
Yeah, we really wanted to take this opportunity to actually walk you through the exact steps you need to take. Although you'll find awesome resources, you'll find that our DFP Help Center is very robust and gives you step-by-step instructions. But if you visually look at it and enable DA along with us and ask us any questions if you have in the comment section, That's our main aim today, to really enable you to do it easily.
Mm-hmm. All right, so hopefully you're logged in here, and we'll go to the inventory tab at the top. So let's take a look at all of your ad units. And depending on your view, you might see it collapsed here, but we want to see the table view of all of your ad units. So go ahead and click within inventory ad units, you want to click on expand. And that'll give you the kind of the table view of all of your ad units. So some of you maybe have hundreds or thousands of ad units, maybe just a dozen, but let's filter for just our active ad units so that we can kind of narrow down our focus. So you'll see the filter section right above the data table that lists all your ad units. So we want to select status is all of, and then active. So we want to basically, let's filter all of our ad units that are active. And then one other thing to note is, depending on how many ad units you have, you want to look at the bottom right of the data table, and you'll see it might say like 1 of 10 ad units or 1 of 100, right? So you want to make sure that you keep in mind whatever view you're looking at, because you might only see, you know, a portion of your ad units in this view. So I always encourage you to select maybe like view all ad units at the bottom, like view 500 or 100. All right, so what you want to do here is check for the enabled for AdSense, right? So you've got all of your ad units, and you want to do a quick scan of that 5th column there, enabled for AdSense. So if enabled for AdSense is yes, then dynamic allocation is currently active for that ad unit. So that means that AdSense is competing with what other line item, maybe it is just AdSense, but if you have other line items targeting that specific ad unit, then AdSense is already competing with those line items or acting as backfill. So you're all set there. If the AdSense enabled for AdSense column is no, then we want to take a look into that actual ad unit so we can adjust the settings to change that from no to yes. So if you click into the name of that ad unit, and unfortunately, I wish there was an easy way to do this on a bulk level, but unfortunately, you have to do it one by one. So we'll click into one ad unit here. And then I'll give you a second to do that, because I know maybe some of you are still scrolling through all of your ad units. But find an ad unit that maybe says no, that you do want AdSense to compete on. And then once you find that ad unit, click on the name of that ad unit. And then if you scroll down, you'll see in the settings section, we want to look for the part that says AdSense inventory settings. So right now it should say disabled if it's not enabled for dynamic allocation. And then you want to click on the edit underneath disabled. And that'll change the name here. It'll open up a checkbox where it says maximize revenue of unsold and remnant inventory with AdSense. So here is where you want to check the box and save. And that'll allow you that ad unit to now be enabled for dynamic allocation. And then Google will compete with your other line items targeting that unit and also help backfill and reduce unfilled impressions. So go ahead and check that box, save, and then you'll do that same process for all of your ad units that show no in the enabled for AdSense. So again, just go through your inventory, be sure you look at all of your active units, kind of do a quick scroll, and then go into every ad unit that says no, and then you can check that, edit, check the box for maximize revenue of unsold and remnant inventory, save, and repeat for all your ad units. So I'll give you guys just a second here to, some of you might be catching up, so just wait a second here.
Yeah, this would definitely be a little time investment to go and enable AdSense for all the ad units, but trust us, it's definitely going to be worth it, because you will be allowing AdSense to compete for every impression out there. And whenever AdSense is able to provide a higher RPM, DFP will allow AdSense to fill the impression over another network, and in areas where it cannot, the impression would go directly to that other network. But at least there's competition. Whenever there's competition, you would find all networks would perform even better.
Yeah, competition does really help CPMs, both on AdSense and other networks. And again, the goal at the end of the day, always keep in mind, like tie it back, what is the purpose of DFP, right? Like what is the goal? My goal is to maximize revenue. How do I maximize revenue? Well, for cases where, you know, I've got direct deals, I want those to be on time. And when I've got networks, I want my networks to compete so that whoever can pay the most for every impression, that's who can serve the impression. So at the end of the day, you just want to maximize your CPMs. So now that we've kind of walked through how to actually go through and enable dynamic allocation, and keep in mind, again, if you do have line item level dynamic allocation available in your account, again, we'll send this deck out after the live stream here today, and you'll have access to the appendix, which has detailed screenshots and mini videos on how to do that for line item level. But for purpose of today, we're just sticking to inventory level dynamic allocation, and I'll hand it off to Vishal if you want to talk about where we can actually see the reporting on it.
Awesome. All right. So now that we have enabled DA for all the ad units where it was not enabled, hopefully, I hope majority of you who are watching the presentation today would find that DA was already enabled for all the ad units. That's awesome that you're already allowing Google to compete with other networks and you're maximizing your yield. But how do you see the reporting? What reports should you be looking at which would allow you to see the number of impressions that are actually going through that dynamic allocation versus those that are not? So I know you're on the interface. If you click on the reports tab on the top, once you click on reports, go to system queries. There's a query called select, and there's a query called opportunity report. It's already pre-populated for you. So the moment you click on system queries, you want to select opportunity report. Once you do that, just name the report anything. You can call it opportunity report. Leave all other settings as is. I want to make this as simple for you as possible. You can definitely add metrics such as eCPM, click-through rate, revenue, whatever metrics you want to see, in addition to the metrics that are already selected. And then you want to click on save and run. So I'll just go back one step here. You click on reports, go to system queries. You want to click on opportunity report. Once you're on the opportunity report, this particular interface, give it a name and then leave all settings as is. Select a few additional metrics if you would like to see them right now, and then click on save and run. So the report we're trying to pull will give you everything at an ad unit level. So this report would show you the dynamic allocation opportunity at an ad unit level broken out by day. So what you would be seeing in front of you right now is how many impressions are going through where DA was enabled versus the number of impressions passing through DFP where dynamic allocation was not enabled. And that should be 0. You do not want any impression to pass through DFP without dynamic allocation, without any competition there, because that is the unique selling point of the double-click for publisher ad server, that we are able to provide you rates for every impression and compete and fill the impression wherever it will maximize the revenue for you. So look at this report, go through it. It gives out a lot of details, but two really important metrics you should be looking at. You'll find something called saturation rate. You want this number to be 100%, because what it's actually telling you is whether DA is enabled and active for all your ad units or not. Wherever you see saturation rate is not 100%, that means dynamic allocation is not enabled and it's not active for that particular ad unit. The other important metric to look at is the match rate. Now, match rate would vary, but it basically shows you the fill rate of AdSense when it is competing through dynamic allocation. So saturation rate and match rate, very important metrics. They would help you understand what dynamic allocation is able to provide you and why you should ensure that it's enabled.
Perfect. So now let's jump into a few FAQs, and then we'll take we have a few questions that were submitted earlier from the email this morning and the registration form. So let's start here with, if I enable dynamic allocation, will AdSense override my direct deals? So that's a question we get a lot, is like, oh, I'm running a bunch of direct deals. I don't want AdSense enabled for that. Well, direct deals always get priority, assuming that you set it up correctly as standard or sponsorship. So those are guaranteed line items. So whatever you set, whether it's a percentage, right, or fixed number of impressions during a certain length of time, AdSense will only serve if those direct deals are pacing, on schedule or ahead of schedule, and if AdSense can fill at a similar CPM. So in those cases, if you've made a direct deal for a fixed number of impressions, there's going to be opportunity to show additional impressions outside of that direct deal, where that you can make incremental revenue off of. So that's where dynamic allocation and having AdSense backfill enabled helps, and it won't harm the pacing of your direct deals. So it should just basically provide additional revenue that otherwise you wouldn't have gotten if you had limited those ad units purely for the direct deals.
Great. So I can take this one. How should I set up my direct deals and my other ad networks? So as Laura spoke about in the previous question, if you want DA to work properly, we recommend setting all the direct deals at standard or sponsorship. If, however, it is not a direct deal that you have with an advertiser, you want the network to compete, otherwise you'll be losing money. And the way you would make it compete is by running through price priority. There are different reservation types in DFP. You can set up the line items with different reservation types, but price priority is the reservation type you want to select for any partner with whom you do not have a direct deal, because DFP will then go by the price that you specify, and only by the price that you specify. So I'll just take a quick example. Again, back to the first example we took in the beginning of the presentation. Network A is giving you $1 as an average RPM, but then you realize that the rate that you have entered for that line item is $1.50. So every time DFP will take a judgment call that will ask AdSense, can you beat the $1.50? If you can, then AdSense, you can take the impression. Otherwise, I will give this impression to Network A, and Network A will apparently fill it at $1.50. But in reality, Network A is not filling it at $1.50. So then it would either end up filling at a lower rate or may not fill at all, and it would lead to a passback. And we can get into details around passbacks. You can learn more about it, but passback impressions are not what the first impression would be like. So it becomes critical to set up all your partners at price parity and enter the effective rate that you're getting from them.
Yeah, and one of the common things is seeing network set up as network. That's kind of the old legacy way, right? Before dynamic allocation was really possible within DFP. So network, again, kind of goes back to, it's similar to hard coding where you're specifying a specific number of impressions. But as we saw, not very efficient. Price priority is the most efficient way to do things and how you want your networks to be set up. So another common question, can I exclude certain units or pages from dynamic allocation? So yes, so there might be times where you don't want DA to run on certain ad units, right? Like policy violations or house ads, right? Or if you have a takeover from a direct deal. So what we recommend there is making sure that you clearly specify those inventory units in the ad unit name, so that you know, like, no, this is the no AdSense unit, so that then you can ensure when you go through and you check for dynamic allocation for all of your ad units, you can just quickly see all the ones that I don't want AdSense on, no AdSense, it's disabled, that's fine. So that'll allow you to keep track, especially as you add more ad units down the road, and make sure that you do have it enabled for all of the units that you want it to be enabled for. And then lastly, if you are running AdSense line items through line item level dynamic allocation, again, more details in the appendix, but you do have the ability there to exclude specific ad units from your targeting when you're running AdSense line items. So yes, the short answer is you can exclude units or pages from DA.
All right. This is probably one of the most common questions that we get. My AdSense CPM seems low. What could be causing this? We've heard this over and over again, but I really wanted to highlight here that AdSense, can compete and fill high value impressions. However, many times it's also used as a pass back or a backfill solution. And the reason for that is we have the ability to fill a really high quantity of impressions, but probably not at the higher value. So we can fill any impression that you can give us, but it may not be at the highest value if it's coming through as a pass back. Now, let's try and understand this better with an example. So let's say AdSense served 15 million impressions. Average CPM that you saw in your reporting was $1. Now, which seems low. You expect Google AdSense to perform better, but that might not be the real picture, because AdSense could have provided you $2 CPM for, say, 5 million impressions, and then the 10 million impressions that you were giving AdSense as passbacks, as the value is not that good, it'll be around 50 cents. But in your reporting, you'll get an average, so you'll see a dollar performance, which is not the true picture. In reality, for the impressions that you give AdSense in the beginning, you are actually getting $2. It's only the passback impressions, the remaining 10 million, which would have otherwise gone unfilled, or those that at least AdSense filled as a catch-all network. Since it's lower, it averages out, and you see only $1 there.
All right, so another question. Who's my account manager? So AdSense and DFP are really intended to be kind of self-service products. So we do our absolute best to provide as many resources as possible to reach out with optimization tips or webinars like this today, where you can learn about best practices. We have an awesome marketing team, so make sure that you're opted into marketing emails, so that you can get all of, when products change, the landscape and the industry is always changing. So be sure to stay on top of product updates. So we do our best. We don't have the ability to provide account management for everyone, but really check out the AdSense and DFP help centers. They're pretty, extensive. There's also, the forums. Feel free to post in there with questions. We do have people that, respond there as well. And then also, Publisher University is a great resource if you haven't checked that out already. Lots of videos, little quizzes, or if you have members of your team that want to learn more about DFP, that's a really great place to start.
Great. So probably we can take a few of the questions. So the registration form that we had sent out in the morning, thank you for all of the people who filled it out. Probably not all, but definitely we should touch on a few questions. Allow us a moment here.
So one question I think is that we got was, what other reports, other than the reporting, the opportunity report we looked at earlier, what other things should I be looking at within DFP? Okay,
great. So one of my favorite reports, and I highly encourage everyone to look at it, it's called the yield report. So now that you have your DFP interface open with you, if you go to the reports tab on the top, and then on the left, you'll find something called yield report. It is a beautiful report. It gives you a visual representation of all your line items. It'll club them into the different reservation types you've selected. So you would know that how many impressions are going into the price priority reservation type, how many impressions are going into standard or sponsorship for my direct advertisers. And many times this report can point out critical areas which you should be looking at. For example, unfilled impressions, something that you might not be aware of, that hundreds and thousands of your impressions might be going unfilled. And that could be because of either bad tagging, or you do not have dynamic allocation enabled. It could be various reasons for that, but at least this report would give you a holistic view of all the impressions and whatever's happening in your DFP server. All right, so next question that was submitted in the morning. How do I know if dynamic allocation is going to increase my CPMs? You want to take that, Laura?
Yeah, so a really common question and something that I see a lot is, it's sometimes I think publishers, you get really focused on CPMs, but I would encourage you at the end of the day, always, always, always keep total revenue top of mind, right? It shouldn't be, oh, like, my AdSense CPM seem low, or, oh, I'm getting this certain CPM from a certain network. At the end of the day, whatever changes you make should always be, in testing to keep total revenue top of mind. And, always tweak and test. There's no, one size fits all. DFP, works differently for every publisher, for every website, for every user base. So I would say don't get focused and too hung up on the CPMs because again, it's hard to take fill rate into account, passbacks, all of that, unfilled impressions. It's a balancing act, right? So I'd say just whatever you do, always keep total revenue top of mind. And I know we're running up on time here, but we have a few more questions that'll come in. So another one is, okay, now that I've enabled dynamic allocation, what else should I do, Michelle?
Okay, great. Very good question. So you have dynamic allocation enabled at an ad unit level for all your ad units. Great. You have made sure all your partners that you do not have direct deals with, they're set up in price priority. Awesome. Can you just forget about DFP right now? Not really. There would be some sort of maintenance you would still need to do. As I touched on this a little earlier, it becomes very critical to make sure that the rates that you have added for your partners are updated on a frequent basis, because this is a dynamic allocation. Auction is dynamic. The kind of RPMs you're getting from network A this week might not be what you'd get next week. Similarly, the performance from AdSense this week might not be the same next week. So on. So I would say the more frequently you can do this, the better, but at least once in, say, 2 weeks, a minimum, go into your DFP account, make sure that you update the rates for all your price priority line items. You want to make sure that you're not overvaluing or undervaluing any network, and the rate that you have entered is the most effective rate, keeping in mind the fill rate that you're getting from the partners. So if, say, another quick example, $1 is the average RPM you're getting from a network, but you see that the fill rate is only 30%, then you want to account for that poor fill rate while adjusting the rates. So $1 multiplied by the average fill rate you're seeing. So $1 average RPM multiplied by 30% fill rate, that brings it down to 30 cents. And then you can bump it up by another 25 or 30% to account for the value of the passback. Because although they are able to fill 30% of impressions only, and the 70% of impressions that they're not able to fill, most probably would be being sent back as passbacks, and they do hold some value. So you want to account for that value as well. So average RPM you're getting from any partner multiplied by their fill rate, and then even bumping it up by 25 to 30% is what would be the most effective rate that you can adjust.
And the other thing you can do too is it's a balance, right? Like if you're getting that higher RPM, like every network's different. Some networks might have a 50% fill rate, 70%. Some might be as low as 10 or 15%, but at a super high RPM. So the other thing that you can kind of tweak, definitely update your rates every few weeks. And then also you can tweak with frequency caps. So if a network is filling at like a $4 CPM with a 10% fill rate, then you can have a higher CPM, right? But then you can put in a frequency cap of like 2 or 3 per user per day, because they just don't have, they have the demand or the supply to be able to fill those high value impressions, but only a few of them, right? So to reduce those unfilled, to reduce those passbacks, you can kind of have a higher than average, I'd say, value CPM or rate, but then use the frequency caps and kind of tweak with those so that you're maximizing your RPMs, but also minimizing unfilled and passbacks.
All right. I think one last question we could probably take is, if I have a line item for AdSense in DFP, but not turned on at the ad unit level, would dynamic allocation still work? Tony submitted that question in the chat.
Yeah, so really great question. So around like, okay, I do have line item level dynamic allocation, but I don't have it turned on at the ad unit level. Do I need to? So the short answer to that is either option works. You don't need to do them both. So I'd recommend, if you do have, choose one or the other. So that way DFP, the reporting is clean one way or the other. I'd say for you specifically, if you do have a line item for AdSense and DFP, I would continue using the line items. Verify that you're targeting all of your ad sizes, all of your ad units, but you don't need to enable dynamic allocation at the ad unit level. And then just be sure to check out the deck when we send this afterwards and the appendix with all the details on the line item level. But really great question. And then one last one, let's cover here. So in the reporting, sometimes dynamic allocation can't attribute the impression to a specific ad unit, and it shows default in the reporting as an ad unit. So I don't know if you want to touch on that, Vishal, but
yeah, like we mentioned, so if you want more granular reporting, probably dynamic allocation at the line item level might be more useful for you. And you can learn more about that in the appendix when we share this deck with you. Whoever has signed up and is live on this educational series today will receive this deck, and you would get details on how you can find out whether your account is eligible for DA at a line item level, and if you are, how you can go ahead and enable it and benefit from the more granular reporting.
Great. Hopefully, I think we covered a lot of questions. If you do have additional questions, feel free to add them in the comment box of the live stream, or afterward, once the live stream closes, feel free to add it within the registration form from the email that was sent out this morning, and we'll try to follow up there. But awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed the webinar on dynamic allocation, and hope it works well for everyone. Yeah, and
thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys, and we'll definitely try and keep having more such hangouts, and you'll keep getting the details in your inbox. And thanks for joining in, and thanks for taking out the time. Hopefully, we added some value, and hopefully you'll be able to generate more revenue now through DFP.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.